Sweaty Cab Jed here from Retiring Disgracefully. The video I'm going to do today is an old video actually. I made this video I think about 4 or 5 months ago, and the idea of it was to explain to my subscribers a little bit about me. I'm putting it back on now because now I have over 1,000 subscribers, and thank you every one of you. It's taken a long time to get here. 1,000 isn't much in the whole scheme of things on YouTube. 1,000 subscribers is very few, but to me it's a milestone, and to me it makes me very happy that I've got this far and I'm still doing it. But I think it's important for anyone who subscribed to my channel, or anybody who's watching my channel, that they know a little bit about me, how I got to this point in my life, why I'm living in Thailand. I think it's good to know a little bit about the people that you're subscribing to. So I'm putting this video back on. I think back then I only had about 300 subscribers. Now I've got over 1,000, so 700 more. Just in case you didn't see that video, then you can watch this and you'll know a little bit about me and a little bit about my life. I'll put the old video on now so you can see exactly how I came to be retired disgracefully in Thailand. The weather's improved no end. The weather's this is proper customary weather we're getting now. The rain stopped, the floods are starting to recede, and life's starting to get back to normal. I just had a drive around the island. I thought I'd have a quick, well, not a quick drive, I thought I'd have a drive around the island. It took me about an hour and a half to get around, including a few stops, and I saw lots and lots of tourists. Nothing like 2 years ago, but it's a step in the right direction. Many tourists on motorbikes. They're out and about now because the rain stopped. I think they were holed up in their hotels and wondering why they were here, but now the weather's changed. They're all out there on the beaches and driving around on their motorbikes, exploring the island. So, before I go any further, if you haven't already done so, please push the subscribe button. It won't cost you a penny, but it will help me get recognised on YouTube, and hopefully one day maybe I can get monetized, which will help me buy the equipment for making this channel and doing these videos for you to see on this beautiful country of Thailand. Due to the constant rain and having so much time in my hands, I've been thinking about my life and how I got to this junction in my life and how I ended up spending my retirement years in Thailand. So I'd like to share a little bit of my story with you today. I've had quite an interesting life and a varied life, I suppose. It hasn't been easy. Well, no one's life has been, I suppose, unless you're Prince Harry or someone like that. But I started off back in the UK. I was born in Bedford in England in the UK, but I speak with a northern accent because my family moved us up to Middlesbrough. I got this travel bug, which has been with me now all my life, and that started at an early age when I think I was about 4 years old, when my father was offered a job constructing a government building in Kingston in Jamaica, and he took us with him, and we spent about 18 months over there in Jamaica when I was younger, and I think that gave me the taste for travel. When we went back to the UK, I always knew I was going to have to leave the UK. I love the UK, don't get me wrong, it's my place of birth and I love it, England. I love the UK. I don't like it so much now. What I see, what's happening back in the UK now, makes me very happy that I'm living in Thailand. So when I left school, I trained as a chef, and as soon as possible I knew I was going to leave the UK. That's the reason I took a chef's position. I trained as a chef was because I knew I could travel with that job. I knew that, you know, you could go to any country in the world and you can get work. Well, especially in those days, that was sort of the late 60s. Anyway, as soon as I had enough experience, I started applying for jobs overseas, and I got a job in Bermuda. And me and my fiance, we went there in 1970. A fiance then, later to be my wife. Anyway, we spent some happy years in Bermuda. Then we went back to the UK and decided to emigrate to Australia. Now then, back in those days, it was the £10 POMs. So if you were English, you could apply and only pay £10 for each person to take a ship over to Australia and live there, because their population was very low. They were trying to build up their population. So that was their way of doing it, and we were called £10 POMs. But strangely enough, we applied for immigrate to Australia under the £10 POM scheme, and we were turned down. And I couldn't believe it. My wife's brother, the year before, had emigrated, and he'd been unemployed most of his life, and he was accepted. We'd been working in Bermuda, and you know, had good experience that we were going to take to Australia with us, and you know, to work in hotels and restaurants there. My wife was a receptionist in a hotel in Bermuda, so we had a lot of experience, but we were turned down. And I've never known anyone to be turned down in those days as £10 POMs. Anyway, we were lucky because in those days you could just fly into Australia if you were British, and you were granted residency without any, because it was part of the Commonwealth. Different nowadays, it's obviously changed. It's very hard to get citizenship, or to get a visa, I should say, for living in Australia permanently. So after that, the travel bug was still with me, even though I was living in Australia. So I applied for positions overseas again, and the next job I got was in the Falkland Islands just after the war with Argentina, 1982. Catering manager on a work camp there, rebuilding the roads and the airport after they'd been bombed. And since then, I've lived in another 7 countries. Before then, I'd lived in Jamaica, the UK, and Australia. And then over the years, the following years, I lived in 7 other countries. Papua New Guinea, where I was working in a gold mine. Philippines, I had a little boat over there, which I had some Filipinos running it for me. It just went round Boracay Island and took tourists around, and it never made me any money. It was never really meant to. It was a hobby, and it more or less paid for itself, I suppose. I never made any money, but the good thing was it employed 4 Filipinos, so they got paid, and it was good because, yeah, okay, I wasn't making anything, but it was paying some wages over there, which helped the local people. And I would go over there sometimes for holidays and you know, be able to go around Boracay on my boat. Unfortunately, during a hurricane, probably about 8 years ago now, it sunk, and luckily no one was on it. It just got washed out to sea. It was tied up when the hurricane hit, and the mooring broke, and it got swept out and sunk, and it was never seen again. And I also worked on cruise ships and international hotels, I worked on cruise ships out of the USA, and then when I came back to Australia, after working in some of those places, I decided to, because I enjoyed working cruise ships, I decided to go and work on ships in Australia. So I got my tickets for that, and I started working on rig support vessels. The first vessel I started to work on was an Antarctic vessel that went down to the Antarctic taking expeditionists down there. Then I worked on oil rigs and rig tenders, and then I got a job on a Australian customs patrol vessel, which patrolled the Australian waters down as far as Antarctica and over towards South Africa. And I worked on there for about 2 years. And I've also lived in Singapore and the USA and a few other countries. So when I retired in 2017, unfortunately my marriage broke up. We'd been married for 46 years and we'd been together for 4 years before that, so we were together for 50 years. So it came as quite a shock, and obviously it knocked me for 6, but I completely understand. But anyway, that's what happened, and I thought that it would be just short-lived and my wife would say, okay, now we get back together. So I decided to give her some space, and I went to the USA. I'd worked out with the USA before on cruise ships, and we'd bought a couple of condos over there. So I went and stayed over there, and I decided I'll stay there for 3 months, sit there and go back, and I'm sure that everything will be okay. But anyway, I spent the 3 months there, and everything wasn't okay when I got back. My wife said no, she's quite happy by herself and living alone with her friends and family, which put me in a little bit of a fix, because I just retired and I wasn't sure what to do. If I stayed in Australia, my life wasn't going to be very good, because the cost of living with a pension wouldn't have been a great lifestyle. Whereas if I'd stayed married, we had the house, we had investments, we had we financially we were okay. So if we'd stayed married, I was okay. But when we broke up, I gave my wife the house. We split the other investments, and I knew there wasn't enough for me to live a good life in Australia on my pension. So I decided to. I didn't want to go back to the USA. I liked it a little bit, but I didn't like living there permanently, so that wasn't an option. I did consider some places down in Central America and the Caribbean to retire to, and I also considered Spain and Portugal. But in the end, I think I always knew years ago that I was going to retire to Thailand. So in June 2017, saw me arriving in Bangkok airport with just a suitcase with all my belongings, and not knowing anyone or where I was going to live or what I was going to do with the rest of my life. I rented a car for a month at Bangkok airport on a one-way rental, with the drop-off point being 900 kilometers away in Phuket, where I thought I'd head for. What was on my mind when I set off was, what am I doing here at my age, away from the world that I knew, away from my wife, from my children and from my grandchildren. A few times over the next few days while I was driving towards Phuket, I felt like turning the car around and driving back to Bangkok and taking the first plane back to Australia. But as I drove further south, it was all a bit scary, starting a new life, but I also started to feel excited. It was just as if I was starting my life over again, a second chance at life. I stopped in many places, going down to Phuket, because I wanted to look at places I might consider great places to live in Thailand. So I wanted to check a few places on the way down. That's why I rented the car for a month, and first place I stopped was Hua Hin, which I loved, and I thought, yeah, this will do me one day, I think. And I did go back there to live, The next place was Shumfon, which is about 2.5 hours drive south of Hua Hin, and I wasn't that keen on Shumfon, but the beach areas were beautiful, but the town itself didn't interest me. The next stop was, of course, Koh Samui, probably the most famous island in Thailand, if not Southeast Asia, and I loved that too. I stayed a week in Koh Samui and I thought, yeah, this looks good, I think I could live here. Next stop was Krabi, which I really liked as well. I'd been to Krabi before on holidays, so I knew all about Krabi, and it was always going to be a consideration for me to live there one day. But I ended up in Phuket about 3 weeks later. So fast forward 4 years, and here I am. I now live in Koh Samui, and my life's good again, and I live a good life, and I feel blessed that I made Thailand my home and my choice of retirement. I've been accepted here in Thailand, and I've been made to feel welcomed by the people here. I'm not sure what the future holds for me. With COVID, it's hard to make plans for the future. I mean, before COVID, I had lots of plans. Many things I was going to do, but not just in Thailand. I was going to spend months of the year, each year, traveling around Southeast Asia and other places around the world. But since COVID raised its ugly head, well, you know, everything's been put on hold, and it looks like it will be for the foreseeable future. Obviously, I'm still doing this trip around Thailand, I think mid-January, which is only about 8 weeks away now. I stopped making big plans and planning too much ahead probably a year ago, when I knew COVID wasn't going to be going away. It's very hard to travel and to do the things you want to do with COVID. I want to do this YouTube channel, but everything is so restricted now. You know, there's a lot of places closed. There's a lot of places that are open that are empty, so there's no atmosphere. Bars are closed. Well, officially they are, unofficially they're not. According to the Prime Minister, they're closed. According to me, nah, I can still go and get a drink in many places here in Koh Samui. So my next plan is to do this trip around Thailand, and I'll take in the 10 places that I've just made videos about in 3 installments, which will be Phuket, Krabi, Koh Samui, Hua Hin, Bangkok, Pattaya, Khon Kaen, Udon Thani, Chiang Mai and Chiang Rai. I'm not sure where the starting place will be. Oh, and I'm also going to take in Phi Phi Island, not for retirement, because it's a very small island. I don't think it suits retirees, but just so you can have a look at it, because it's just reopened and it's in pristine condition, because there's been no tourists, or very few tourists going there. So now it was closed for a couple of years to try and get the coral to grow back, and just to try and get rid of all the pollution that the millions of tourists that have been coming here for years had been depositing and leaving behind. But now apparently it's supposed to be fantastic now. Very much the same what I said about when I lived in the Philippines. Very much the same. Boracay had the same problem. It closed down for about at least a year, I think. The Prime Minister, he just went and visited there one day, and he just closed it that day. He just said, no, this place is disgusting. Beautiful island, but it was just polluted, and it was disgusting. He was right. So they closed it, and a lot of people lost their livelihoods for a year, but now it's in pristine condition, same as Phi Phi Island. Since I came to Thailand, and long before I started my YouTube channel, so that I didn't go the way of some expats I see around and spend my retirement propping up a bar somewhere, I reinvented myself as an author. And I've written 10 books to date, 5 travel books, 4 novels, and my biography titled You Will Never Amount to Anything. which were the last cruel words one of my teachers said to me when I was leaving school in 1966. His actual words to me were, "You'll either end up a drunk, unemployed, or in jail," which were very cutting when you're 15 years of age and looking forward to your new working life. It was a horrible thing to say. And anyway, in a way it was good, because I spent the next 50 years trying to prove him wrong. Mind you, he was partially right. I have been known to enjoy a tipple every now and again. I'd already published the Retiree in Thailand Handbook the first 6 months through my publishers, Austin McCauley, and they asked if I had any other books that I'd like to publish, and I told them that I'd written my biography, but it wasn't. I didn't write it to publish it, and they said, "Oh, send us a copy anyway, we'll have a look." Anyway, I sent them the copy, and they liked what they saw and they offered to publish it. In the end, I didn't go with them. I had a bit of a problem with my publisher, and I decided to just go alone and publish it on Amazon, which is what I did, and which is where it is now. When I wrote You Will Never Amount to Anything, I wrote it not for publishing, I wrote it for my family. Well, more so my grandchildren than my family, because my children knew all about me. You know, obviously they're older now, they're in their 30s and 40s, so they knew about our lives. You know, we'd spoken about that many times over the years. You know, they knew all about me and their mum. But my grandchildren is different. I retired to Thailand 5 years ago, and because of COVID, I haven't been back for 2 years. So my grandchildren don't really know me as well as they should. And I thought, okay, I'm going to write my life story so that they can understand a little bit more about me as they get older and want to read the book. They can know about my life and their grandmother's life and what it was like to grow up in the 50s and 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s before they were born. They can then get an idea of how me and their grandmother lived our lives. I believe that everyone has a story inside of them to tell. Many people, just like myself, think that they've led an uneventful life, but it's only when you sit down and think back on your life and put pen to paper that you realise that even though you may not be a famous actor, sports star or musician, your life story is just as important as theirs is, and probably more so in many cases, and it deserves to be told, even if it's just for yourself and your family. So all you retirees out there, you've had very interesting lives, maybe you just don't realise it. Sit down, think about it, and maybe one day put pen to paper and write your story. I'm sure it's well worth reading, even if it's only for your own family. You know, when you eventually go, your grandkids can read it and say, "Oh, I didn't know Granddad did this," or "I didn't know Granddad lived there." Do it. It's something to do, it takes up your time and it's enjoyable, and you remember things from your past that perhaps lay buried in your brain there and suddenly comes to light. So take a look at my Amazon authors page. You'll find the link in the description. And take a look at my book, You Will Never Amount to Anything. Read the bio, and if it's something to keep you amused while sitting at home waiting for COVID to disappear, you can buy a copy. I hope you enjoyed watching today's video. Please let me know in the comments box if there's anything you'd like me to try and make a video of when I'm on my travels or within Koh Samui. If you know of anyone who you think might like to watch my YouTube channel on Thailand and Koh Samui, please push the link button and pass on the link to them. So until next time, take care and stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers now.